came online or came on the phone. I had to come off the phone because I'm sorry, I'd rather talk to this person any day of the week than be talking online. I'm so sorry. Got cut the line to talk to this person because I'd rather talk to them than anyone else right now. Yeah, so what I was going back to before about heavy policing. I don't like police. Never have. Okay? I don't like authority at all. But it's like with me, I have to deal with the world as it is and not as I want it to be. I want it to be better than this, but I have to deal with the world as is. And the world as is that me making 200 phone calls about harassment is not going to get anything done. That's the truth of the matter. It's not going to get anything done. The only thing that's going to happen is that people turn it around on me and turn around on my mental illness and say, oh, you got schizophrenia and that's why you're hearing people, even though these walls are like fucking cling film. Okay? So, sooner or later, when somebody's harassing you, you have to be the one that deals with it, even if it makes you look bad. There was one example that I brought up of this poor soul called Bijan Ibrahimi. My condolences to his family. I'm sorry to bring this up again because I've talked about him before. I've talked about him on Twitter. I've talked about him on Facebook most likely. And this poor man, he was a disabled Iranian man who had reported death threats and racial abuse to the police for 7 years. So this man had been going through something for 7 years before this poor man was finally murdered because there had been false claims going around that he was a paedophile. And if anybody who is a targeted individual knows, false accusations of paedophilia, they're not that uncommon. Like a lot of targeted individuals go through this. They're either accused of being paedophiles or prostitutes or dangerously mentally ill, violent. I could be violent sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But, dangerously mentally ill or, whatever negative traits that you've had in your life, those traits are taken and exaggerated. So basically what the gang stalkers do is they take the criminal records of everybody involved in gang stalking and they attach it to you. And it is my belief that this is what happened to this poor man right here. So, without heavy policing, this man was not tortured and killed. I don't know if he was tortured. I know he was badly harassed. Let me just look at the details of the crime. The police failed to record crimes on at least 40 occasions. So police will fail to record crime. So when I've been harassed and I've reported it to police, they failed to note it down as a crime. And shit like this can get people killed. I don't know the details of his death, but I do know the details of the fact that he reported harassment several times. Like I've reported harassment several times, and it was never reported as a crime. Now, going back into what I said in part 1 about the police, the public policing is stretched as it is, right? And then on top of that, it's corporatized, so it's more likely to benefit the interests of rich people anyway. Second thing is that heavy policing is the only thing that works with most people. So if I'm going through harassment up here and I keep recording harassment, 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be recorded as a crime because they've got other crimes to investigate and deal with, which are growing at the same time that public policing is dwindling. Okay? So the third thing is, in extreme circumstances, cases like Bijan Ibrahimi's are the result. This is a peaceful man. He did the right thing and he was still killed. Because of how stretched public resources are, they can only afford to step in after the worst case scenario has happened. They're not going to step in for a harassment case. They're not going to do it. It's the same with mental health. They're not going to step in, because they didn't even step in yesterday. I was literally screaming and crying and fucking throwing tantrums. They still didn't take me. I begged to be sectioned. They still didn't take me. Because they couldn't see a worst case scenario in my situation. So that is the only time when public service is actually there to act in worst case scenarios. And who knows that better than the mafia folk who are involved in this gang stalking mess? Who knows that better than them? They know that people aren't going to get to crimes before they happen. Better to preempt this shit, innit? So that's for another conversation for another time. But the point that I'm making is that if heavy policing is the only thing that works and heavy policing is not happening, not only is not heavy policing not happening with people who are harassing me, but people are being actively encouraged to harass me anyway because of covert social control. They're not going to get justice. They're not going to, nothing's going to happen unless I take it physical. Or if I even threaten to take it physical, nothing is going to happen unless I get physical with it. That's the only way anything's going to calm down. There has to be physical, real-life consequences to what's going on. You can't just have me ranting online and have nothing happen. That's what I'm saying. You know, when people don't investigate shit, they don't investigate harassment. But people end up, you know, people can end up hurt. People can end up dead. People can end up homeless. This shit is not a joke. And I have to work with how the world actually is. I don't get to work with the world that does not exist. And this world that the guidelines write that exists, it doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't existed for decades. It does not exist anymore. The world has changed. Like COVID-19 is like everything's turned into fucking Mad Max. There's fuel shortages, food shortages. People are being squeezed. People are losing their jobs. People are being forced to stay indoors. With this Omicron variant going on, people are going to be staying indoors even more. How do you think that's going to turn out? I have to work with what's there. I can't work with what isn't there. We don't live in an ideal world where if you ignore a bully, then they'll just back off. We don't live in that type of world. We don't live in that type of world. We don't live in that type of world. If it takes violence to sort out a situation, or threatening violence to sort out a situation, police and law enforcement and fucking military do it all the time. If threats don't work, then you've got to put boots to asses. They do that all the time. They should know better. They should know better. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's just like you can't work. You know, ideally I'd like no police, and I'd like there to be a system where instead people's mental health are looked at, and I think things would build a lot more slowly than they have done through wearing people out. But I think organic growth of a society, organic growth rather than forced alchemical growth, I think it would have been a lot better. The progression would have been slower, but it would have been better, and it would have lasted longer. But we don't live in that world. Don't live in that world, man. We have to make allowances, and we have to do what we can, and we have to work with our strengths, whatever strengths we're given. So, I'm leaving, or at least I think so. It depends on how long the landlords take with the surrender tenancy, because I've already put in my bid. The council are trying to talk me out of it. It's fruitless. I'm not doing it. There was a part of me that didn't want to leave because of the effect that it would have on my business interests, but I'm not being funny, right? I'd been doing Real Justice to Row. I started Real Justice to Row when I was living in my flat, and I'd continued with Real Justice to Row through my stay in a hotel, through my stay in multiple hotels actually, through my stay in a hostel. I'd continued Real Justice Tarot through homelessness. So this other business venture I've got going on, there's no reason why I still can't continue. There's no reason I still can't continue. None. Not going to stop me. It's going to be a lot harder. I'm not saying it's not going to be harder. But there are things that once I'm ready to do them, I'm ready to do them. And it doesn't take a flat for me to have those things. It'd be harder without the flat, but it's not going to be impossible. I know I can do it. And I know by this time next year, I'll be in an even better place than this one. Simply by my own sheer force of will alone. And if anybody wants to come to my door and bring nonsense through my wall and through my door, they know what's going to happen. Anyway, I love you guys. You take care. We're picking up the pieces. So you guys take care. I love you. Mwah. Bye-bye.